Hi, my name is Conrad Carroll. If you don't know me, I'm the youth director here. And my first order of business today is to release the children to Pastor Roy over in the back. You guys are going to have an awesome time in those super clean rooms that we were talking about earlier that a bunch of volunteers cleaned. So if you are younger than junior high, then you are going with Pastor Roy. My job here is to be the director of junior hires and high schoolers. so all you guys right here, yes, they're my buddies. Yes, yeah. They're here to throw tomatoes and to make sure that I don't feel too good about myself. That's, no, I'm just kidding. But today is Youth Sunday, so every time there's a fifth Sunday in the month, the youth band gets the privilege to lead worship, and I get the honor to be able to bring the word to you. And that's super awesome. And today is not just Youth Sunday, but it's also Freedom Sunday, which I have my slides, and boom, yeah, there it is. Today is Freedom Sunday. So if you got a bulletin, there's a little fill-in-the-blank sheet. If that's how you roll and if that's how you remember, then that can help. So there'll be some of those fill-in-the-blanks for you. But yes, today is Freedom Sunday. And you might be asking, what is that? Well, let me tell you. It's a event sponsored and supported by an organization called International Justice Mission, or IJM. And IJM is a Christ-centered organization that employs lawyers and justice workers, social workers, legal representatives to create legislation that allows them to free slaves from their bonds. Literally well, let me tell you the countries: Guatemala, Dominican Republic, Bolivia, Ghana, Uganda, Kenya, India, Thailand, Cambodia, and the Philippines. They go to these countries and they work with these governments. And in these governments, things like slavery and prostitution and sex trafficking, the government seems to turn their heads. They seem to look the other way. And IJM comes from a standpoint that says that is something that we have the ability to change, and that's something that we should change. I'm not an expert about IJM. I really don't know that much about them, other than the research that I've been doing for the last month to help prepare. But so I have a video that they put out so they're going to tell you more about who they are. So if we'll direct our attention to the screen and we'll cut out the lights, let's watch this video together.
Right now, there are people trapped in slavery. People who have been taken, beaten, raped, and robbed of their dreams. Rupa and her child live in constant fear of abuse. Arul is crushed by the labor he's been forced to do every day. Lydia is hidden away, her body used over and over. At International Justice Mission, we have decided that this is not the world we want. So we unite. One body, many parts, working together to bring rescue. The heart in this body is the freedom partner, strong and dependable. You. Freedom partners courageously give $24 or more a month, funding rescue, month by month, rescue by rescue. Beat by beat. Without freedom partners, hands would not grasp. Feet would not move. Eyes would not see. Freedom partners send rescue to restore Rupa's family. Give freedom to Arul and make sure Lydia is found. It will take a strong heart to end slavery. It will take you. By joining as a freedom partner, you will bring rescue to slaves all around the world, telling those still in slavery, help is coming. Month by month, rescue by rescue, beat by beat.
So there is a little picture of IJM's heart, their ministry, what they want to accomplish. And I don't know about you, but I've been in your chair a lot and have watched a video like this, and there's something inside of me. There's like some sort of like latent apathy. It kind of sits there. So I'm just curious. Like, are you apathetic towards new projects? Because when I see this video, unfortunately, the thing that sticks out to me is they want my money, and a switch just turns off in my mind. I'm just like, okay, that's what this is about. These thoughts they gently stream through my mind. Things like, I don't have the money to give, so why should I bother learning about their cause? Especially when I was younger, teenager or like late teens, and I either had no income or very small income. I was just like, there is no money for me to give. This is not directed at me. This is for someone else. Or even now, the thought that, they only want my money. Or I'm already committed to another cause, so do I stop supporting one cause to pay attention to this one? Like, how do I, my budget, it doesn't really fit that. What am I supposed to do? But as I'm saying these things out loud, I know that if I would allow these thoughts to really settle and really find root in my mind, I would reject them, because the basis of those statements is like my selfishness and my desire for my own stuff. And as a Christian, I'm like, that's not a good basis for my decisions. So, but I don't allow myself to actually ask those questions or to actually think about them. So I just let those thoughts free me. They give me psychological freedom from having to care or think about IJM or what their organization is all about. So it's kind of just deep-seated, just sort of happens. And that might be you, or there's a good chance you might be a better Christian than I am, and your heart is more compassionate, and thank you. We need more people like you. But so I asked the question, why should I care? And so I'm thinking kind of as I'm preparing, why should you care? Why would you care? So I want to ask an actual question that I'd like responses for. So think about this. Maybe just take a moment. But here it is. Where do you see injustice in your world today? If you look around in your areas of life, where do you see injustice happening? Any thoughts? Any takers? Shout it out. Abortion. Yeah. Old people. Totally. Ageism is real. Yeah. Homelessness. Poverty. That was the other one. Medical system. Any others? I work on Sayonara Boulevard, or Sayonara Drive rather, in Citrus Heights, and there's a lot of low-income housing and a lot of families that just seem to be torn apart, and it seems like it's just like, man, what did the kid do to deserve this? It just seems unjust. Homelessness, yeah, and those are just a couple of things, but it sort of beckons this question that says, who Who defines what is just or unjust? And I grew up a Christian, and so all my life that answer was just kind of spoon-fed to me. It's like, well, God, he decides what's right and wrong. He decides what's good and bad and just and unjust. He is the only one who determines what is just. But if you're not a Christian, that question is a little bit tougher. But I think we still have to face it, because we all just called out a couple of things that, like, I see this and it is wrong. So there's something inside of me that decides what I think is right or wrong. So how can you say that God is the one who decides? Like, no, I'm deciding. And especially when it comes to political things, because people have their opinions, and everyone has a great defense for why their opinion is right. They have researched, they have planned, they have structured their argument to tell you, my opinion is correct. And so how is it that one group of people can decide that this is right, and this other group of people decides that the exact opposite is right and just? So that question's a little bit tougher, but our own discernment is not to be discredited. We do have like this natural intuition, but your gut feeling, which it's good, your gut feeling, the only reason why it's trustworthy is because we were made in God's image, the one who determines what is just. We're made in his image and in his likeness. In Genesis chapter 1, when God made us, it says, in his image he created, in his likeness. He said, let us make man in our image and in our likeness. And God, he tells us a little bit about what his version of justice looks like. He tells us where his heart is. There, if you look at the Bible, throughout the entire story arc of the Bible, over thousands of years, you see God's character on display. As you read it, you see one story after another, and you see the consequences for people's actions and the rewards for other people's actions that they bring upon themselves based on their behavior and their attitudes. So you get to see where God's heart is. And there's a couple of verses there's plenty, but there's a couple of verses that really, really stick out that show us just like, oh, that's what God thinks about that. That's what he thinks. So I want to share a few of those with you, and I actually put them in the wrong order, so let me do this one first. This is Isaiah chapter 1, verse 17. And just a little bit of backstory. God is using the prophet Isaiah to speak to the nation of Judah, who are just corrupt, absolutely corrupt. And God is telling them that what you are doing is wrong. And you could slaughter 1,000 bulls and offer me like all of the incense you want, and it's all worthless. I'm not gonna hear it, because you need to wash your hands. You need to clean yourselves. And he says you need to cease to do evil. And then it picks up in verse 17, and it says, instead, learn to do good. Seek justice, correct oppression, bring justice to the fatherless, plead the widow's cause. So God tells them, you are on this trajectory, turn around, and this is the kind of behavior that is good. This is what I want from you. This is where I want your heart to be, because that's where my heart is. That's what God is telling his people through the prophet Isaiah. And so we see some pretty important things: justice, correct oppression, bring justice, plead the widow's cause. This is who God is. This is what he wants. And then similarly in Micah chapter 6, verse 8, he's speaking to the nation of Israel, God's very own people, and God is frustrated, and he's using the prophet Micah to tell them, basically to question them and say, is it really that hard? He says, this is what Micah says. He says, he has told you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? What else does he require of you? He's like, look, I'm breaking it down to 3 things: do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God. Is there anything else that God has required of you? This is where God's heart is. This is his very heartbeat, is justice. And so we, because we were made in God's image, we it's like a statue of a famous person, like Abraham Lincoln sitting on his chair at the steps. Is that statue Abraham Lincoln? No, it is marble or something like that. It is made of material, but it makes us think about Abraham Lincoln and like, oh yeah, he was really cool. That's right. Woo, yeah, way to go, Abraham Lincoln. Abolition. That's awesome. Also great president and other things. But it only points to Abraham Lincoln. And just like that, we were made in God's image. And we are not God ourselves, but when people see us, they are shown God's character. God's character is on display through us. And we get to point and remind people of how great God is. We were made in his image. And because we were made in his image, our gut feeling is pretty good about what is right and what is wrong. And it also means that we have real value. We went on a youth retreat a couple weeks ago, and that was the main theme of it, was talking about the value that we have and seeing that value in other people. And so we had this little illustration that I want to show you. That is a broken cell phone. Anyone ever done this? Anyone ever suffered the consequences? Right now, I feel the pain too. My screen is cracked, and yep, I get it. What would you value this at? If you were really desperate, maybe you probably wouldn't be buying this phone unless you might be really desperate. But if this was your phone and you broke it and you had to sell it and you were trying to get money out of it, how much would you sell it for, expecting someone to buy it? Anyone? What would you sell? $5? So you said, is that about right, Joseph? How much would you sell it for? 60? I could believe that. Yeah, that's an okay. Yeah, it all depends. It still works. The phone still works. It's just the screen that's broken. So you just have to avoid the shards of glass as you're touching the screen, and everything's fine. Yeah, so maybe 60. Actually, Apple has like sort of a buyback program where if you're going to buy the newest phone, they'll give you money for the old phone that you have. And I think for that, it's about $60. I saw $70. So you're probably dead on, Joseph. I think you're right. So there was a police chief who was at a LA Clippers game where they were honoring Los Angeles Police Department. They were promoting them. And so this police chief got to sit courtside at a LA Clippers basketball game. And he was sitting right next to the pop star Rihanna. And he's like, oh my gosh, this is pretty cool. Let's take a picture together. So Rihanna takes his phone and takes a picture of them and then drops his phone. And it turns up looking like that, broken screen, and she feels awful. And so what does she do? Takes his phone and turns it over and signs on the back of it, sorry, I heart LAPD, Rihanna. And then the police chief puts the phone on eBay and was able to sell it for $66,500. Geez, from $70 to $66,500. What? How do you get that difference? Where does that difference come from? But we are like that phone. We have an extreme value far beyond our worth because we have a special association with someone who skyrockets our value. Just like that phone. All it took was one signature because, oh my gosh, I think she actually touched that phone. Wow, it's worth so much. In a similar way, there was an organization, Data Genetics was looking to do a study of like how much is the human body worth, and they took a avenue of breaking down the human body into its very basic elements. So they broke it down into hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, a million other ingredients that are inside of the human body. And then it's like, okay, if this is how much hydrogen we have, and we try to sell that, how much would we get for it? And so they came up with the average human body is worth about $160, which is kind of disappointing and like humbling. But then another organization, actually Stanford, some of their economists were looking at a year's worth of human life. Things like housing or transportation or wages or food, like what's the actual value of one human's life for a whole year. And they came up with a figure of $129,000. So what's the disconnect between those two numbers? $160 or nearly 1,000 times more valuable? And it's the composition of the elements and its life. Again, when we look back at creation, God made Adam, and I'm assuming that he kind of formed him into a pile of dust or something human-like, except that it was dead, until God breathed his life into his nostrils, and then all of a sudden he came to life. And it's God's very own spirit that resides in us that makes this different, that takes a broken, cracked phone and turns it into something extremely valuable. And that same value is in every human life. That same value, it's not just me, but when I look at anyone, they've got that same value. They've got that same image of God. They were made in that same image. They've got the imago Dei. God decided that you were worth something. In God's definition of justice, as we were looking at those couple of verses, he decided that you were worth dying for. That when he was placing your value, when he was determining what your worth was, he said, you're worth it all. You're worth it all. And this is the kind of heart that God has for his people. And I think part of my problem is that I try to limit who it is that are God's people or not. When I watch a video from IJM, I think, wow, that really is awful, but what can I do about it? I have my own mission. There are injustices that we talked about that are in my community that, like, man, that's what I need to focus on. But however, further away, there are injustices that are far more grievous, that are costing people their lives or their livelihood, and they're being left to die or to suffer. And there's something I can do about it. I can't just sit here and say there's nothing I can do, because there is something that I can do. And if I really see human life as valuable, then it's worth it. And it's worth it. We're going to watch a video of just one of these stories of a boy named Foley, and we get to see a little bit of what International Justice Mission does in a practical level. So let's turn off the lights and we'll watch this video together.
I am 5 years old. I follow grandfather to the farm and watch what he's doing. I am 9 years old. I never want to leave this place. I always help my grandfather in the market.
Akpere mu adagbare ji o. Never no gbonyo akpoji na.
Aboboruku asragbale vi. Esia.
When I left home with my uncle, I didn't see my grandparents anymore. The first time I went on the lake, I wanted to escape, but I didn't know the way.
Get it, Chairman!
God, when the waves crash on the water, gave me strength. And the net holds me in the water, gave me breath. God, do I let the net go into the deep place? Give me a life today. They told me my grandfather came for me, but he could not find me. My uncle said, "You forget about your grandfather." And he said, "Those are the people who comes for small boys."
Oli, one get him. Oli, one more than
So when they come, I should jump into the water and swim away.
Oli!
Yung ko na. Ayun ko na. Motor. Motor.
Non konya Oli.
And Foley's is just one story. If we had 5 minutes to watch 1,000 stories of different people, I feel like our hearts would really break, and we'd be very motivated. But this is kind of a state that's normal for Christians, that says that I know my value, and I also can see value in other people. When I look around, I can see that they are made in God's image, that this is really who they are. And I've been learning this about myself recently, that's not normal for me. That's not where I live normally. I was in a meeting with someone at Starbucks, and And I was telling them about this youth retreat we were going to go on. I was like, oh yeah, it's going to be talking about the value that we have and how other people have that same value. And even everyone in this Starbucks has that same value. And as I said that, I was looking at everyone, and all of a sudden my heart just broke to think, what kind of pain are they going through? Like, are they surrounded by people who remind them and encourage them that they are valuable? Do they have people who tell them that you are a child of God, you are made in his image, and he's so valuable, in fact, that he would be willing to send his son to die for you? Are people getting that message? Or are they being told that they don't work hard enough to get the pay raise, and that they're not cool enough to fit in at school, or that they need to work harder to get better grades, and that they're not quite meeting it, and they need to be different than who they are in order to be able to be acceptable? Is that the message they're receiving? And my heart all of a sudden just broke in that moment. And since then, it's just been moments here to there, and I recognized that, and I just said, that can't be who I am. Like, I need to change that, because it's what Jesus says. It's because it's how Jesus lives. Where if you look at him, he reaches out to the orphan, the widow, the foreigner. That's our call to action, is to care for those people, the people on the fringes who are disenfranchised, rejected. That's who Jesus reaches out to. He cares for them. James 1:27 tells us that religion that is pure and faultless is to care for the orphans and look after the widows in their times of distress. And in Exodus 22, after the Israelites have been taken out of Egypt, have been freed, God gives them a command. He says, you will not mistreat a foreigner because you were foreigners in Egypt. He's like, remember where you were, and remember that there are other people in that same situation that need love, that need kindness and compassion shown to them. And this is just how Jesus lived. He showed kindness to the leper, or to the prostitute, or to the tax collector, the people who everyone else hated. And then he also tells us pretty explicitly that this is the foundation of a Christian life. In John 13, he says, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. With the love that I have loved you, so you should love one another. And this will be how people will know that you are my disciples, if you have a love for one another. So that is the big billboard marker of a Christian, if they have love like Jesus had love. And so if I can't look at people and understand their value and see their worth and encourage them and love them, then I'm missing it. And I have to really ask myself, am I really a Christian? Am I really following Christ like he asked me to? Is he really the Lord of my life? Maybe I believe the stories, but is he in charge? So that's part of our call. And International Justice Mission is a practical way to care for these image-bearing people in other countries. There are real people who are really suffering worse than we are, and there's something that we can do about it. And it's so very practical. But also, let's care for, there are people just like that in our community right now. Because this shouldn't just be one stretch, reach effort to care for people far away, but as Christians, it is a call for this to be our lifestyle, that we would see people as carrying the ultimate value of human life, and that we would do something to make sure that they are treated justly, that they are treated like God would want to be done. And so we're going to have a time to respond, and our call to action, the question we're asking is will you be a freedom partner today? Giving $24 a month to help International Justice Mission fund people to go and to save people's lives, save people out of slavery, to save people out of prostitution rings, and to bring them into a place where they can heal properly. And there's something cool where there are some donors, generous partners with International Justice Mission, who believe in it so much that they want to encourage you to give, that for today, if you give, they will double your giving for a year. So instead of $24, it'll be $48. They'll be working with you to give more money, up to like $800,000. There is like an extra motivation, and so we just want to ask you, and you know that this is something that we would value, because this money doesn't go to the church. It doesn't support us directly. These are all individual relationships that you're building with an organization, and for us to ask bears no benefit to ARCF as a church. It bears no financial benefit to us, but we want to ask you to consider and make the gesture to become a partner with IJM. And so if that is your heart today, our response time is a time to fill out the information, or even go online on your phone. The website is ijm.org/FP for Freedom Partner, and you can go online and fill it out now. But let this time be a prayerful moment to decide, is Jesus the Lord of my life? Is he the Lord of my calendar? Is he the Lord of my wallet? Is he really in charge? And just ask how God would have you support, what he would have you do. So we're going to take a few minutes to allow that time. There'll be some music playing, and I just encourage you to pray and ask God what he would have you do.
Two things I'd like to share real quick. Number one, the backpacks that we're filling and sending to the Philippines, those are being sent out on Tuesday. So if you've not gotten yours in, please do so. Second thing, I'd like to share personal testimony related to IJM. The most wonderful and exciting thing about being a Freedom Partner is not the feeling that I get from watching my statement each month that pop up. Oh yeah, we supported them, cool. The exciting part of being a Freedom Partner is the emails. Because this is not an organization that sends out a monthly email of blah, blah, blah. This is what we were working on, this is blah, 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 general. No. Something hits your inbox right when it happens and it says, 2 girls rescued. Anybody in your inbox have all your taglines full of trash and things that don't really matter in life? And I swear 3 or 4 or 5 times a month says 4 boys rescued. And I click on every single one and I read every single email, because we live in a world where I need to hear that something good is happening. And I need to know that there are Christian cops and there are Christian social workers and there are Christian attorneys that have the expertise to do stuff that I can't do. And they're laying it all on the line to make sure the good happens in the world. Holy Spirit, whatever our next level of obedience and passion for your name is, individually or corporately, take us there. Lead us and make us joy-filled as we follow. In the great name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen. Love you guys. Have a great week.